Welcome to the London Commercial Offices podcast with me, your host, Steve Berridge, Managing Director at Fidgens Cost Management. This is a podcast where we share the stories, career paths, lessons and insights from some of the industry's most influential people. Anything contained within our podcast should not be considered professional advice, and if you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe or follow buttons to ensure you don't miss any of the amazing guests we've got coming up. It also really helps us grow the show. Thanks. Today we're joined by Yaron Rosenblum, co-founder and CEO at Canvas Offices, a London-based serviced office provider launched back in 2018, now with 15 buildings under management. We're going to unpack Yaron's rather diverse career path, starting with a DIY recording studio in a chicken coop, through to launching and scaling Canvas with his brother Oren. So, without further ado, Yaron, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate the opportunity to come along and have a chat with you. So, thank you very much.
No, pleasure's all mine. So you'll know from our previous episodes that we like to start right back at the beginning. So how far back do you want to go today?
I think from your introduction, maybe we can go straight to the chicken coop then. But maybe I'll go a little bit further back. So I'm originally born in 1982 back in Israel. My career started as a professional drummer back there. And from there, I just felt like that the biggest dream for me was to come to London and to the UK to come to probably one of the most successful music industries globally. And we've been influenced by a lot of British artists. And so I decided to take the flight. It was a one-way flight in 2005. So it's literally within a month from today, it's going to be 20 years ago. And I came here. But I think as part
Did you come here with was there a plan, or it really was get on a plane and I assume want to make it as a musician in London?
Yes, I did have a plan. I actually went to Turkey to buy cymbals. I came with my £1,000 cash in my pocket, cymbals, drumsticks, and I had actually long dreadlocks at that time, so I looked very, very different. And and I said I'm just going to go for it. So that was really my plan.
Fantastic. So how did that plan evolve? So you turn up in London, and how old were you at this point?
So I was in my early 20s.
Okay.
At that time. And I think maybe I'll go a little bit backwards just to give some context for the chicken coop. So when I was 10, I started to play the drums. And when I was roughly 15, we live in a small village back back in Israel, not too far from Tel Aviv. And we did have a chicken coop that was redundant at that stage because I think as a business, probably selling eggs wasn't really the most lucrative business at that time. And what I decided to do, and my mom was actually one of the biggest helper on that, is to build a small recording studio within the chicken coop. And that was one, probably from the selfish point of view, to try to be less noisy at home playing the drums, as you can imagine, is quite loud.
I used to play the drums, so I get the pain.
Yeah. The pain is usually for others. We're enjoying it, but I mean that's what was the strategy. And I think the other thing that was sort of coming out of it that was I'm so grateful for the rest of my life for. It's essentially become a little hub for the community and the musicians around this town and cities around to come and actually record music, play in bands, create, write songs. And I think that's essentially when my career started. And when I said my mom before, I forgot to say she's an architect. So it was very beneficial to have a trade to help me to actually build this little recording studio. It was essentially an extremely DIY facility. But I can tell you that we recorded so many albums there. So much creativity was flourishing in there. And I think jumping probably 25 years later, even today that, we have the whole building above Holborn Station. This is one of our flagship buildings. And I can tell you that it's been built because of the chicken coop and because of the recording studio there. And you can imagine how important that moment was for me. It was extremely useful thing to have and a beautiful thing for the path of my career and the rest of what we've done up until now. So in my early 20s, jump on the plane, moved to the UK, lived in London, did some little jobs that weren't great, but very quickly within a year. I opened my first business in London. That was a production house back in Soho in central London. And very quickly I understood that rather than playing on stage, working at night, and essentially struggling with this kind of a really overly saturated industry and a very difficult industry to penetrate if you want to become a professional drummer that actually can pay the bills rather than doing side jobs. I understood that I've got some good qualities in around the business arena. And so I found a business partner that we've done the journey with. We took a very famous recording studio back then in Soho that was redundant at that stage and started a business. And it was amazing. It started as a sort of a one-man band doing everything. So I was the music producer, I was the salesperson, I was the marketing person, the operation, the drummer, the guitar player. And slowly, we grew this business. And we saw within probably a couple of years, we got to a point that we had 25 employees there. We grew from one production house to 3 production houses. We moved from 2 or 3 different genres that I could produce myself into essentially across the board, and managed to record any music really people wanted to have. And it was really good. I really enjoyed it. And 3 years after we started the production, I actually bought the other half of the business from my first business partner. And at that time, my brother, that is a very different personality for myself. So he's a lawyer, I'm the drummer. You can kind of visualize it this way. He helped me to structure the deal. And when I bought the business for my first business partner, I then joined with my brother. And since then, we are working together amazingly, and we love doing it.
So your brother joined the production house as well?
Correct. Yeah, correct. Yeah. Then we worked together, yeah.
And what was his kind of... So how did you split the roles then once he came on board? What was the...
Really good question. And I can tell you that until today, it's working perfectly. So there is the magic when you have a family business that the one thing, and probably the most important thing you're going to get, or at least we have it, is trust. So when you work with other people, sometimes it's really hard to trust because, it's your baby, it's your thing, you are the founder. And I'm talking mainly as a founder rather than a professional role, an entrepreneur. And I think, when it's your baby, you want to give the best. You want to do everything you can, and it's not always very easy. And that was a long journey to find the best people to work for you. In the beginning, you can't pay a lot of money. Nobody know your business because it's relatively small, so it's quite hard. So then having a brother kind of supporting it, it was amazing. And going back to your question, because we are so different, we're essentially covering 360, almost, I think, on the spectrum of the business arena. So Oren, my brother, will always deal with all the legal, finance, operations, what I usually like to title as the boring stuff. And I will be dealing with all the, I'm assuming, creative stuff. And it's the people, the sales, the marketing. At that stage, because I was a professional musician, I dealt with all the product side of things in the sense of recording the music, till we hired people, to engineers and musicians to do the job. And the one job that I managed to keep for myself, as ranking higher and higher in the hierarchy of the business. So when I became sort of the CEO of the music business and we had people to do all the other jobs, I kept myself my drum sessions because that was my obsession and what led me there. So
you were still playing drums on recordings?
Yeah. I've done a lot of that, and I really enjoyed it. But essentially, when you're then running a business, and that's something that took me some time to learn, then things change a lot because suddenly, instead of dealing with all the creative things, you're kind of dealing with KPIs and measuring people and making sure performance is good and dealing a lot with a P&L. So yeah, but the drumming was the one thing that I kept myself forever, essentially. I'm still playing the drums, a bit less now, having family and a growing business. But yeah, that was that. So, and yeah, going back to the question, it was just a perfect synergy between me and my brother running the businesses.
Fantastic. I'm just picking up your point about working with family. So at Fidgins, I work with John, my father, and we've worked together for, I think it's 12 years now.
Oh, wow. Well done.
And it's one of those things, I completely agree. There's a level of trust there that you can try and build with other people, but it's blood. It's great. And also it's a privilege, to be able to spend that much time with a family member on a daily basis, which is fantastic. So, okay, so you're in a thriving music business in Soho.
Yep.
With your brother. How long did you sort of continue with that as a business in that form?
Good question, and it's quite complicated to explain. But we run the two businesses at some point: the real estate and the office, the canvas offices business. That at that stage was a smaller and a different business, and I'll elaborate on that as well. And the music production at the same time. But essentially, we sold the business after 10 years to management. But within 7 years of the business, we understood we need to move forwards into our next journey. And I have to say, it's a fascinating story, but we coincidentally got into the real estate world. None of us actually had the expertise or have done any jobs in this arena before, so it was quite interesting.
Except the chicken coop.
Correct. Actually, that's true. That's true. Yeah, that was. I'm not sure if it was the most lucrative real estate business, but it was indeed the beginning of the journey in a way. Yeah.
What was it? And you said in the last sort of 3 years of that, you knew that you wanted to move on to next things. I'm curious to find out a couple of things. What was it that you thought you were missing or that you wanted to do? Because you could have presumably just ran the music business profitably for another 20, 30, 40 years. So What were you missing? And then where did the initial idea for Canvas come from? And how did you navigate from music into real estate?
Yeah, I'll tell you the story. It's quite interesting. So one day I was in reception. We had the 3 production houses, and one of my clients coming downstairs and said that one of his vocal coaches been kicked out of his office because it was too noisy. And he asked us, do you have any space for vocal coaches? And I said, no. But then very quickly as an entrepreneur, I said, I'll find a solution for that.
I can find some.
I can find some. Time we just opened our newly 3rd production house, and we had a little office that was actually almost unused. So I said, you know what? Bring your vocal coaches. Let's see if we can help them in one way or another. They went in. We checked the room. Acoustically, it wasn't the right space because it was more an office space. So yeah, we've got the builders into the space. We insulate the room. We put some acoustic paneling, and essentially since then, those guys were flourishing and growing their vocal coaching business from there. And for us, it was amazing to realize that you actually can charge the rent from a very small space in this specific basement that at that time it was, and essentially cover all your costs. And we were like, okay, there is definitely a business angle to that. And at that stage, I think also we were tired of the music industry. And I have to say that probably answering your question about why to move away from the music industry, one of my biggest passion is growth. I'm enjoying, and my other probably favorite part of business is product. So when I create the right product and when I see that people enjoying it and when I see that it's actually a good business, the first thing that I just want to do, how can I do more of it? How can I service more people to enjoy what I created? You know, it's almost like being an artist in a way. You just want to do more of it and create more. So at that stage, I understood that the music business for me personally had a very big glass ceiling in there, and I felt trapped and unable to keep growing sustainably the business in the correct way. And then we thought, maybe a real estate is a good idea. And we successfully done our first deal, and it was an extremely good deal.
So just on that first deal, were you leasing the building from a landlord, and essentially you were then going in and subleasing that office space?
Exactly. That was the model. And essentially, we continue a very similar model since then, even though we obviously grew and changed our models in one way or another. But it's essentially discovering a new model that made sense. So I think at that stage, we realized, all right, now it's time for us to move forwards. I had a very good friend of mine that had a great business back in East London. He recommended me Shoreditch as my first place to go and check. And that's exactly what happened. I just went, spoken to a few estate agents, and within a few weeks, we took our first floor in our business. And it was obviously very different model of what we're doing today because we needed to learn. We never done it before. And since then, we usually don't take floors in buildings. We take the whole building because I think the journey and the services that we want to put in our product is very important to have this way. But yeah, it was very exciting. And I think what we learned in the music business was actually translating beautifully into the world of offices because within a week of opening of this floor, we were sold out and we were already profitable. Even though we had no experience at all in the world of offices or real estate in this sense. I mean, obviously we had the real estate in the music production house, but it was very different. And straight away, we jumped into the next building because we loved it again and we saw that it works. And then obviously challenges occurred, and difficulties and growing pain. And how to solve things that we weren't aware of and learning new things. And that was fun. But I think at that stage, we just decided to sell the music business to management and focus only at the office business. That, just to let you know, at that time was R&R property. So we started in 2013. R&R property was our first journey. It was a little bit different from what the Canvas product do. But that's when we started, when essentially it was only me and my brother running around and just enjoying ourselves, and again, starting from scratch.
So if you can cast your mind back to that kind of first, well, maybe, I suppose it's your second deal, what did you think you were building? What did you sat down with a pen and paper, you kind of thought you had something there, if you were, what were you aiming to build? What were you hoping to build? I'm sort of curious as to how you've followed along that path over the last 15 years or so.
Yeah.
Have you deviated away from that significantly, or are you still kind of following that North Star?
It's a really good question. And I think the answer is going back to my obsession of personalizing everything and servicing others. I think what I wanted to do is to ask my one question that this is maybe should be a secret, but I'll say it. That's my trick in business. There is only one question that I think made me who I am today and led my business to where we are at the moment. And is, how can I help? That is my obsession, because I truly, and the trick though, because it's not that simple. It's not just asking a question and a business is going to happen, but you need to truly listen to the people you're going to service and work with. Because when you ask the question, you get all the golden nuggets you need to have in order to be able to execute what they need. And I think when we started the first floor, it was all about that. What do you need? And very, very quickly from there, we managed to actually create a product that today essentially is very similar. I mean, obviously the real estate become much bigger and the product becoming better, and you've got more services, and we've got today almost 40 employees that are phenomenal people that are much better than me at what they do. So obviously running around just me and my brother, we obviously had gaps in our capabilities and knowledge. So today we are very, very privileged to be where we are, but essentially it's always going back to this moment. How can I do the best for the people? And just truly listen to what they need. And you're not always can give them exactly what they need, because you are the expert around what you do, and obviously there are limitations. But I think we're spot on that, and I think we're doing it very, very well. So I think that's really what we try to build. And you know what? Maybe I'll answer it in a bit of a different way as well, from a different angle. Is going back to the days of the chicken coop. I just wanted to create spaces for people to connect. And I like to call it sometimes the dreamers and the builders, the people that have the vision and create the business, and then the people that work with them to actually execute it. So essentially it's that. It's just creating spaces like in a chicken coop, of which people, musicians coming together to create. And now it's just phenomenal, super successful businesses, anything from smaller businesses to a big global unicorns that essentially we can service and let them create their product and their services that they want to do.
How do you think that, obviously, in terms of your journey then, so you started with 1 up to 15 buildings under management, how do you think the way that you think about the serviced office market has evolved over that period of time? Because obviously the landscape has changed significantly.
Correct. And I think it's a fascinating time to be in this industry. And I think more so, I look at it less as a serviced office. I look at it as, what is the future of work going to look like? And what are the changes that occurs at the moment that they are significant? And I think it's really interesting as well, because in the beginning, we weren't part of the industry. We were a musician and a lawyer creating spaces for people to create. We didn't know the industry. We didn't know the competitors. But very quickly, actually, we've got our relatively famous competitor coming from America to the UK, and WeWork arrived. And obviously they made so much noise that even us, even though we just enjoy ourselves in our small little business, we couldn't ignore that. So we kind of learned. We even took a couple of desks in there just to learn what they do, and it was actually cheaper.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. It was a bit of an espionage at work, but we really enjoyed it, and we had a big development that we've done at that time, and it was a WeWork next door. So instead of being in a dirty and dusty building site, we were just sitting in a desk. And then we started to learn really about the industry. And I think, it's really interesting, and because the ethos and the obsession, as I called it before, in a sense of servicing the people and understanding what they need and ask truly what they need, we actually created a product that I think people transitioning towards today. So I think we almost in the future, because I think when WeWork arrived and a lot of other people started to copy that and created those glass boxes, one of those things that I will never do in my buildings. I just don't understand that. And of course, that's a thing that you need to do when you have massive floor plates and you need to get natural light. But obviously, it's not something that people really want. So they obviously market it as sort of a community. But as I like to always say, imagine if you have a bed inside of one of those rooms. Do you want to live in a glass box? I mean, I don't, and hence I don't create those products. So I think the transition now is about the acknowledgement and understanding, one, that every space is different from the other. And I think replicating and cookie cutter approach doesn't work anymore in our industry. You can't just put desks and chairs and say, here you go, this is your office. People want more now. They want to, and that's another thing that for us is very important, is to create homes for people. For me, it's always creating homes away from home. And I think creating those soulless, in my mind, rooms with desks and chairs is something that cannot continue growing. And that's going to be a big change. And I think the other transition that we saw in the industry as well is that in the beginning, serviced offices was all about sort of smaller businesses, maybe a startup that just started and can't commit for a 5-year lease. Today, you see massive organization, global organization, actually transitioning some of their teams into flexible office providers and serviced offices because they need it. They need the experts. It's almost like when you go into a hotel, nobody expects from you to wash your sheets and clean the room, because it doesn't work like that. And it's very much about that now, that people are expecting that rather than it's something that they just want. I mean, it's an expectation from our clients at the moment.
In terms of picking future sites for Canvas, in terms of buildings, I believe you are London centric in terms of your focus. What do you look for? What's your kind of criteria? Is it characterful? Is it natural light? What do you feel when you're on the hunt for buildings?
So I think I'll start by the order of importance, and I think location is number one. So for us, locations are very, very important. In the end of the day, the decision we made to work in very central locations and work in London, that is one of the biggest hubs globally, as a location, is because I believe that the office of the future is all about an accessible space for extremely talented people that usually coming to work for bigger organizations that usually work in those bigger hubs. So it's very important. So location is number one, and that's where we identify if this is an opportunity or something that we don't want to pursue. The next one, I think it's the natural light. I think for me it's very, very important to have the right floor plates and windows and positioning of the building in a way to be able to get the natural light in. I think that's what really people want. And that's with the years and years of experience of asking what people want. So it's quite easy. Next one, I think, is, we love characterful buildings, but I think that's going to go down the list, because if the building is positioned in the best way, you can actually bring your product within and create the character there, as long as architecturally you're listening to the building and you're creating something unique. I think floor plates are obviously very important for the natural light, but also floor plates are very important for us because we like to call it, we build modular floors. So modular floors are a very, very important thing in our business model, and that's essentially a risk mitigation strategy. And that essentially means that if you go into a floor in our buildings, you're probably going to see anything between 5 to 10 doors, where of which sometimes you're going to have only one space and one company in the room, because we can open all the interior walls to connect the space into a one big company. But suddenly, if a company leaves, you need to have the ability then to build a more modular facilities and create smaller spaces. So that's also very important for us. And I think really those are the most important things in our sort of decision making around buildings.
Gotcha. And then in terms of sort of, you talk about bespoking and providing a service and an offering and an environment for specific tenants. What does that look like? Do you take a building, fit it out, let's call it Cat A plus or Cat B from your perspective? This is what it is, and then tenants come in as all done, or do you prefer to not take the fit out that far, wait for the tenants to come in and take a space, and then enable that personalization to happen?
Yeah, no, I think in our journey, I think we master the craft of space. And trust me, when you do the magic and asking people so many times, how can I help? You get the idea of what majority of people want. That doesn't, though, change the fact, and that's very important to explain, that I believe, my true belief is that if you want somebody to feel at home, and that's our goal always, they need to be the company or the clients needs to be part of its creation. And in order to do so, and for me, it's not a marketing tactic. You can see the name of my company. It's Canvas. It's all the idea that you can paint and create your own thing. And yes, answering your question from how we do it, because we master the craft and because we understand what people want, and because we have the most phenomenal designers and teams of people in our property development side of things, we create a great product. But then we always and never forget that we're going to ask our clients, what is that you want? Because we build a whole infrastructure in order to be able to change the furniture, to build more meeting rooms, to put more phone booth, and essentially helping them to create what they need rather than create our own product that we believe is the right thing. So there is a perfect synergy between our knowledge and abilities and asking the real question of what people want, and then creating for them what they truly want.
Perfect. In terms of, and I'm just going to keep firing questions because it's just stuff
Absolutely.
in my mind that I'm thinking about as you're talking. So, it started off as quite a small business. Obviously, you've scaled to 40 plus people. How was your day-to-day role evolved throughout that time?
Yeah.
Are you still, you can't be in the nitty-gritty of every decision, I assume. So how have you navigated that? Is it something that you've enjoyed? Do you miss the early days where you could be involved? Give us some context around that.
It's a really good question, and it's a really interesting thing, because I always say now that my true job is to try to make myself redundant from every job I do. That means that I'm keep scaling, because my true belief is there is always better people out there that can do specialized job. I'm a generalist. That's my true job. I can sell, I can operate, I can design. I've done so many of those things.
Ideas.
Yeah. So it's so I think slowly, and as the business scale and can afford getting talented people within, then I just make myself redundant, and I get a specialist to do it. Going back to if I miss it, you know what? I'm really, really enjoying my job now. And I think that's just because I'm so privileged, lucky, and happy that I was able to get those amazing, talented people at Canvas offices, the people that work at Canvas offices. And that makes me really happy, because when I can see people doing this amazing job, it just makes me more confident and want to create more product and get more buildings to the portfolio. But yeah, there are things that I miss sometimes. I enjoy meeting clients, and I'm enjoying sometimes doing a deal and sell an office. I love designing offices. I design, I think, probably around eight buildings. The first 8 buildings in our portfolio, I was essentially the interior designer. And I learned how to create the product. But as I said, I've got better salespeople, I've got better designers, I've got better operation people now. So I'm really, really enjoying it. And so yeah, it's almost like an obsession and a hobby now to make myself redundant from every job. And as long as it's the P&L shows that is doing well, so it's not you can't just hire people for the sake of hiring them. As long as the business is growing and is doing well, this is kind of what I do at this stage.
So what does that look like on a sort of a daily, weekly basis? What are you doing? What are your jobs to be done? How do you compartmentalize your week to ensure that you're doing the necessary things, but also having that headspace to be creative, to figure out new income streams, to do that strategy piece?
Yes, it's really interesting. So as a CEO, obviously the leadership team, the senior leadership team of the organization reporting to myself. So obviously always there to listen to them, to support them, to help them when they need. obviously to allocate resources. So when people coming and saying, I need more money to create that, or I need support on this, so I'm always there to analyze, even though we have a great finance department, but obviously I'm going to be involved on the bigger decisions. I think strategy is very important. Is the one thing that me and my brother working a lot. I mean, he's kind of took the position to create the strategy, but we together need to make the decision how essentially the future of work going to look like and what is the direction to go to. So I think we're doing a lot of strategy. I spend a lot of time with our partners, so landlords, investors, people that sort of supporting us on the scalability of the organization. And at the moment, I literally 2 weeks ago, I made myself redundant again from property acquisition. That's what I've done since the beginning. So every building we found, I found that. And it was the relationship with agents, with the brokers, with the landlords. So now we go to our head of real estate to take this position for me. So it's going to give me more time to essentially, I think, relationship and essentially being the advocate for the brand externally and internally. So externally, of course, is explaining what the product and why it's us instead of anyone else. Internally, I think it's more about the culture, to explain that that's what the company stands for. And as you scale, it's becoming a challenging thing. Because it's not as easy anymore as sitting in a room with 3 people and that's your whole organization and everybody can speak to you and everything funnels through you. Suddenly, some people in the organization meet with me very rarely, so it's harder to execute, but it's an interesting challenge and I'm enjoying it.
Fantastic. What do you think? I mean, if you could talk about it, what are your plans for the future as a business? If we'd look forward to, let's say, 5-10 years time, is it sort of the status quo? Slowly build, slowly grow. Are there, completely, given that you went from music to real estate, are there any more big curveballs that you can see on the horizon?
So there are the things that I can say and there are the things that I can't. So I'll start with the things that I can say because it's easier. So
Sure.
we're going to steadily and sustainably going to continue growing exactly what we built up until now. We are just doing it better. We are successfully and sustainably taking maybe 1 or 2 buildings every year. They're becoming bigger and bigger, so the organizations scale nicely. So that's going to continue happening because it's just naturally what we build. On top of that, as I mentioned, Oren, my business partner, was focusing very much on strategy. So we have 2 more sort of avenues that we are exploring and starting to work on heavily at the moment. One of which is the sort of managed solution, I would say. That's just the title, just to explain. But essentially, going back to the first floor we took in Shoreditch, and then never took again a floor in a building, but took only self-contained buildings. Now we're going back to the floors because we saw that there is a massive challenge for landlords from an occupancy point of view. And we created a product that is extremely unique that I can't elaborate at this stage exactly how, because we are just about launching the product. But it's essentially supporting landlords. And there's so much vacancy and so many empty floors that even though they're located in the best location, they have great natural lights, they have amazing floor plates, and there are great businesses that needed the canvas product, but they don't need essentially the more service side of it. They need more a floor in a building, and we can help them with that. So we're doing this. So you're probably going to see more and more floors by Canvas that are going to open up in the London market. And another very interesting avenue that we're exploring at the moment is the global expansion. So I'm spending some time in Munich at the moment, looking at a few buildings. But that's just the beginning of. So we sort of target ourselves only 9 months to start it, but because I had a great opportunity with one of our good friends and landlord that owns quite a lot of buildings in Europe to come and support them in the German market. So I'm just looking at that at the moment, as well as pushing forward the managed solution for the London market. Now, the things that I can't talk about, but I will give you a bit of a snippet because you are absolutely right that moving from the music business into the real estate business will not stop only in offices. And I think my passion and my curiosity around the future of work made me really understand that in my mind, just scaling and growing just the office space is not enough. So I look at it as sort of, if I now look at people and the way they work, from the hybrid working to the creativity that required in order to actually be successful in your business when technology is supporting on many other things. I think offices are not enough. And I think, just to give you a glimpse, but not much more than that, I believe that we're going to continue to develop in the city center, in the core location, the hubs of the London market or any other bigger cities. I think then we're going to support with a smaller but very similar home away from home, very close to your home, but it's not going to be an office building. It's going to be more sort of a retail experience.
Okay.
And then in my mind, there is the one thing that is a dream, but that's maybe more the 5 to 10 years, is to create sort of a resort that essentially is a place where of which people can blue sky and essentially strategize, where it's much harder to do when you're in the more noisy and closer to home or within an office to do. And I think that's going to be, in my mind, the future of work, and how 360 environment for the people working in the next 10, 20, 30 years required. And we're going to build it. That's the plan.
And I can see that that's lit you up. I know this isn't a video
Absolutely.
podcast, but
Yeah.
grinning ear to ear, and that's typically what happens with entrepreneurs. It's and there is obviously an issue of, and I have this next shiny thing syndrome,
Yeah.
but it is. But I always say you need a few things on the horizon just to keep you pumped up,
But I've got my brother. I've got my brother to stop me when it's
to keep
required.
you
Don't
on
worry.
the straight and narrow.
I just gave you a few ideas. There are many, many more in the drawer that I'm just not there anymore to take out as yet. But that doesn't mean that I hope I'm going to get to the place in my life that I will be able to focus more on product creation and kind of bring my creative flair back to that. But focusing on the right things, and of course having the teams to support executing that. So yeah. Entrepreneurs, it's in our blood. We can't stop ourselves. That's what we love doing. We are. I always look at it like we are a little bit like artists and children. So I think both.
No, listen, I'm the same. It's it's there's constant ideas spinning around, and new directions and new things that we think should be there, that people should have. Or I always think it's just the ability to spot pain, spot friction, spot pain in daily life, and I think a lot of people
Exactly.
don't see that. And it's this undying need to try to fix things, which is great, but it does mean that you're constantly coming up with new ideas that you need to put in a box, put in a drawer,
Yeah.
until such time as you've got the bandwidth to be able to do it. But
But I
look, we're
think.
kind of go carry on.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, but always remember that what you did start as an entrepreneur, and the business, this amazing podcast and the business you created started because you didn't put it in a drawer. You went and do it. So now, in my mind and in my career, the most important thing is always finding ways. How can I go back there? And obviously having the best talents in the industry working for you is allowing for me at the moment to then step back and create more time for myself to be able to then do it again and again and again, but in a strategic way, and always thinking about your clients. That's the most important thing. So that's my opinion. But
And I think that's a really important point you touch on, that the talent that you can attract to your business really is the lifeblood of the business, and the difference between grade A talent and grade B talent, whilst it might only be an A to a B, actually that difference over a 10-year period is significant in terms of the results that can be achieved. How do you think you go about attracting the top talent within the industry? What is it about you guys as a management team or your business? And most people will just say it's our culture, but digging a bit deeper than that, how do you go about that? Do you go to seek them? Do they come to you?
again, really good question. But I think, and I think you've seen it when you said that I had this glare when I talked about creation. I think it's the passion. What I see in every talented person, and with no exception, that they are passionate about what they're doing. And if you, as the leader, passionate about what you're doing, you're going to attract those people. Now, it's not enough. It's one thing, but passion is absolutely the most important thing. Then, of course, you need to create a sustainable business that can generate enough money and profits to be able to pay those people, because talented people will always have more opportunity to work elsewhere. So you have to be fair with how you pay. We have what is called the EMI scheme. We're looking at our employees as partners. They truly get percentage of the business. So if we together, like as a business, going to grow, it's not only the founders or the senior leadership team that's going to enjoy that on that level. It's going to be everyone in the organization, doesn't matter in what position they work. And the ones that join early, and obviously those are the ones that help to create it, are the one, and that's the way that the EMI scheme works, going to get more because they're obviously supported to grow the business. So I think that is how I believe a team should work together and almost like a family. So I think it's important that everybody going to benefit from that. I think you need to have a great office. That's one of those things. So we have great facilities. Thanks God, we're privileged because we do that. So we just actually moved to our flagship building next to Tottenham Court Road. So we have a 40,000 square foot building there. So we obviously followed all of our processes and created exactly what we create to our clients, that we master our craft, because sometimes you forget and you're busy and then you kind of just get yourself an office somewhere. No, we got ourselves our best office and we love it on the 7th floor with views to the city. So it's beautiful. So facilities are obviously very important. And when I keep talking about creating a home away from home, it is for us as facilitators essentially the office space, but it's so much more. And I think that's what we managed to create in Canvas. Just to give you an example, next week, all of our team is going to Mallorca together. Every year we're traveling, and for me, it doesn't matter if we have 40 employees or 4,000 employees. I will want to keep that because that's the family holiday, essentially. When we're celebrating success, when we're talking about challenges, but doing it around the swimming pool in a sunny place. That's usually the goal. I can tell you that a lot of people creating friends and network within the business. And I think because we are so open and transparent about who we are, we're also attracting the right clients to us. So I think we have great bunch of clients in our buildings that are essentially made from the same materials. We all want the same thing. We want to do good to the world. We want to create great products for our clients. We want to make money, of course. This is obviously businesses. And I think it's just, we created a network of great people, and I can tell you that, and that's the fact, great people attract great people. Every time we're recruiting now, we've got so many people that join the team that it's actually referral of our existing people. And I can tell you that I had only in the last few weeks people telling me I've been referred by another one of your employees that said that that's the best place to work for. I can tell you that even when we lose talent, that it happens, and it makes me even proud when I can see them growing and even going to competitors. We're in a place now that there is nothing to hide, and we attract the best people now. So I love seeing people even going to competitors and growing and getting bigger position when we can't afford doing so because we are not in the right place. By hearing those people that leaving you, and I had it from 2 people in the last 2 years, they're telling me that was the best place to work for. Can you imagine, when you're leaving a company or when you're moving on, this is not really like, what you're going to be discussing usually about. And hearing that, it makes me very proud. So I think great people attract great people. And it's important to be very careful. And we have a great HR as well, just for clarity. So, yeah. and we have a very thorough process to get the best people, as well as everything else that I said.
Fantastic. I think just sort of drawing our conversation to a close, how do you feel about sort of the serviced office market and its current capacity? There's a lot of, there was previously some big players. There's now a lot of small niche serviced office providers. How do you think that landscape is going to change over the next 5 to 10 years? Can you see it consolidating into, acquisitions, combining, or do you see the model of having a lot of small players offer a premium service? You think that's going to hang around for the long term?
Look, I think similarly to other mature real estate businesses globally, such as student accommodation or hotels, very similarly going to happen here. You're going to have the dominating massive large organizations and companies like the Hilton as such that's going to continue grow globally, and they're going to have a lot of footprints all over the world because they're doing something right. You're always going to have the equivalent to the boutique hotels and smaller businesses, and same with the serviced offices. You're going to have loads of people doing that. But the most important and interesting thing in our industry now is that essentially also the landlords and the people that owned the real estate, they are struggling themselves because now the expectation is so high. So they're going to start, they are starting to do it themselves at the moment. You can see like the Great Portland Estate and some other bigger landlords essentially starting to open their own sort of flexible arm. And I think this is great. That means that the end user is going to have an amazing product rather than an ugly office with a blue carpet and neon lights, that nobody wants to work anymore. The world of work is changing, and it changed. And I think now it's the time to do that. So I think answering your question from a scale point of view is just going to grow and grow and grow. You're going to have more and more and more players doing it. You're going to have so many different type of products, and that's great. As much as when you go into booking.com, you're going to have 1,000 different options if you go to London. So it's going to be very similar to that. And I think it's important for the listeners to understand as well that the world of real estate now, or offices, changed substantially on the legal front. People do not take 10-year leases anymore. People do not take 5-year leases anymore. They want flexibility, and they're happy to pay the price for it. And more so for the services and the facilities and the less headache. So somebody's going to deal with your real estate side of things. So it's all starting from there. And I think things are going to change from the banking point of view as well, to understand the value and the valuation of a building with a service office operator in there, like with all the parallel industry I just mentioned before. So you're going to see a massive shift and change. And you're going to see, maybe in my side, that it's something that we are doing at the moment as well. You're going to see a lot of operators and landlords that mastered different crafts starting to work together. It's something that already happened in the past, but I think potentially not always in the best structure. I think now there is a synergy for operators and landlords to work together, and each one to continue mastering their craft and work together on sort of. So essentially, you're going to see serviced offices becoming landlords and landlords becoming serviced offices in one way or another.
Fantastic. And I think that's a fantastic way to end this episode. Look, Yaron, thanks ever so much for coming on. Really enjoyed it.
Me
we'll
too,
have to
Steve.
get you back on in a couple of years to find out how your journey's going.
Amazing. Steve, thanks so much for your time. I really, really enjoyed that. Thank you.
No, absolute pleasure. If you have an office project on the horizon and will be preparing a budget for board approval, head to my website, www.steveberridge.com, where I have a collection of resources to help you formulate a robust project budget and give your project the best chance of being a success. Thanks.